We're going to jump over here to sound, which is probably the next thing a lot of people are going to use. This is where you determine what your input output devices are going to be, how you adjust your sounds. There is a simpler way to do this. Again, in the top right, you don't always have to come into this menu. You can adjust your volume here or with the respective shortcuts on your computer or on your laptop. So after you've gone in and selected whatever your output device needs to be, again, I don't have that many here because this is running in a virtual machine, which is just kind of outputting one audio device into my main computer, which is just using whatever I told it to. So this doesn't understand what all I have plugged in. I can go in and select specifically what I want the output to be. Most people are probably going to want to select analog stereo output for this. These other settings here are more specific if you have more ports on the back of your desktop computer and you're plugging into individual speakers. For the most part, this is just going to be left and right for most headphones and most systems. This is a quick mute, so you can just turn the sound on and off, very similar to up in the top right here, where you can just do a quick mute, and that'll affect here as well, as you can see. And you can also adjust your volume in both spots as well. You can't see that one when I click on here, but this is adjusting the volume up here as well because they're the same control. The balance is a bit more specific. Only really touch this if you're having an issue, or if you're hard of hearing in one ear. What this will do is if you're like hard of hearing in your left ear, you can adjust this down a little bit, and it'll turn up the volume on the left side a little bit and down a little bit on the right to help kind of balance that, hopefully. And then when you adjust this volume, now it's quote unquote equalized. So this is going to be a bit more of a by user basis. Maybe you're also having issues with the speaker or with headphones or something, and you want to just kind of test this, get it dialed in better. Input device is also fairly simple. Again, I have quite a few odd devices here that I don't actually have, but it's just because the virtual machine's confused. You're probably only going to want to have one or two of these at a time because you're going to have maybe laptop speakers, a television or monitor this is plugged into, a single pair of headphones, maybe Bluetooth earbuds or headphones, and then you're only going to want to select whatever that is. Most devices as well will actually return what they are. It'll return the model number. So if you're using like Apple AirPods, it might return what that is, or it'll just say something like Bluetooth device. And then again, you can adjust this input volume. I would suggest most of the time just having it maxed out because whatever software you're going to be using, like Discord or Zoom, will probably figure it out on its own. Unless you are having issues or someone says it's really loud, then you can come in and turn it down. But again, typically applications are pretty good at normalizing it, and I would rather have it all the way up and let it figure it out as opposed to having it too low and not knowing. When you go into sounds, you can just kind of affect this. This is the volume levels of different system sounds and things. This is just so like notifications and opening, like starting up the system, you might get a startup sound. This is just adjusting that. You can turn it off if you don't like it. And alert sounds, this is kind of like a notification again. You can just pick between one of these, whichever one you want, and it's going to kind of display. It's going to play what the sound might be. I'm just going to leave it on click for right now, or you can turn it off. Running over to power, a lot of systems are going to have varying differences in this of what shows up here. If you're on a laptop, you're going to see something very different than what I see here. What I have is balanced and power saver. I kind of talked about these a little bit in the first episode, where balanced is just kind of general. It has everything set out to default, whereas power saver typically is a much more aggressive power option where it will like make the screen dim a little faster. It will usually turn down the CPU or the GPU performance on your system and make it run a little slower to help save some more power. And it just kind of, if you're running kind of low on battery, you need to extend your battery life, then I would suggest turning on power saver. But if you're plugged in or you're doing something more intensive like gaming, I would have it on balanced. Some systems I've seen even have a high power, high performance setting as well, just above balanced here, where this whole menu will move down a bit. And I would put it on that if you're doing something very intensive like gaming, because that will help everything boost. It'll help everything run a little faster. And sometimes what that does as well is it'll just outright turn off the screen blinking. Go down here to displays. This is also going to be untouched by most people unless you're using external monitors. I only have the one monitor, but if you had several, then you would see a short list here of what all the different monitors were, so you can kind of drag them around and reorder them, select different ones, and maybe like me, you have different monitors that are of different sizes. So you can select the one that might be 1440p or 1080p and select the other one that might be a 4K screen or something. And then the refresh rate as well is also selectable based on specific ones. Orientation can be useful. I have before, and I plan to again set up one vertical monitor on one side of my monitors, so you can set it to one of these portraits as well, which will allow that monitor to be turned 90 degrees, and then you can still read what's on it because it will just change how this looks. So sorry, I'll explain in a little better. This orientation is kind of like having a phone screen would be what portrait would do. And I don't know which one to be, right or left, so I usually just flip between these until it's right. And then scale, you don't really need to worry about this. It's probably already set up pretty good right now. If you're having difficulty seeing or reading something, you could try turning up the scale a bit and hit apply. It'll basically just make everything on the screen scale up a little bit, but these are really aggressive numbers. This will actually make everything on the screen twice the size that it currently is, and this will make it 3 times whatever it currently is. So I would probably not touch that a lot. I've talked about the nightlight a little bit, and I want to actually turn this on and show how it works. Basically, I just leave it on all the time and have it set to schedule sunset to sunrise, and it'll use your geolocation that we looked at earlier, the GPS and privacy, to affect how this works. Or you can set up to a manual schedule and set up specific times. Sunset to sunrise will change almost daily, usually minute by minute, until it's actually dialed in, and then you can change the color temperature to how aggressive you want it to be. Which usually the more aggressive the better, technically, because again, so the point of this is to help prevent eye strain and sleeplessness up here, because the blue light from computers, even though some people say it's harmful to your eyes, I don't believe it's harmful to your eyes. There's a lot of arguments against that. However, it is definitely kind of fatiguing. It's not harmful per se, but it can be annoying after a while, especially if you're in a dark room or a dimly lit room. So this nightlight kind of helps with that a bit. And typically the more aggressive this is set to, the better. But again, this will affect color accuracy. So if you're doing some color accurate work and you don't want to affect it too much, you could turn down the color temperature. But I definitely wouldn't do too much color accurate work with nightlight turned on. I would only do it during the day. Obviously, I mean, if you're doing color accurate work, you probably know kind of what you're looking for in senses of what screen you're using and what system you're using, because even the monitor and stuff will matter. You're going to know what lights are in your room. So realistically, you're going to know how all this works anyway if you're doing color accurate work or like photo editing or video editing. But for the general person, I would suggest putting your settings something about like this. This is going to provide somewhere near the best overall outcome. Go down here to mouse and touchpad is next. And what we're looking at here is this. It opens up to mouse by default. Usually along the top is a mouse and a touchpad button. I don't have a touchpad plugged in here. If you're on a laptop, you'll see a touchpad button next to this. This will only affect mouse settings. So if you don't have a third-party mouse, like a Logitech mouse or something plugged in, these settings won't affect anything. So if you don't have a mouse, don't even bother with these. Just jump over to touchpad. But a lot of the settings will look kind of similar, where you can select which one your primary button is. This is for switching left-hand, right-handed mouse over. So actually, I guess this does affect touchpads a little bit. This stuff doesn't, but this one does. So if you have a left-handed mouse, you can want to set it over to right, maybe. I mean, that's up to you, really, whichever one you want to use. This also affects your pointer speeds. If I turn that down, it changes my mouse speed. Actually, it doesn't change right now. Why is it not changing? Oh, this is probably not changing because I'm in the virtual machine. That's right. Because my primary operating system is taking care of all these settings, whereas this is Fedora Linux. In a virtual machine, these settings aren't going to take any effect really because it doesn't have hardware level control. That's why these aren't changing anything. Pointer speed will obviously slow down and speed up your pointer speed. If it feels kind of sluggish now, turn it up. If it feels too fast and you're having issues clicking on things, slow it down. Mouse acceleration, I typically turn this off. Mouse acceleration is something. Does that give an explanation? Yeah, there we go. Turning it off can allow more precise movements. What it does is it puts the mouse cursor on an acceleration curve. So if you move your mouse really fast, it'll speed up the rate at which that cursor moves, so you can cover more screen in smaller space on your touchpad. But what it can do is, if you try getting used to how quickly the mouse will move over a specific over a specific distance on your mouse pad, it can offset some of that precision because now you're moving past what you wanted to actually click on. These two scrolling things are actually pretty self-explanatory. Natural scrolling is if you scroll up, it's similar to on your phone, whereas you swipe your finger up on the screen moves up. And if you swipe down on traditional, then it moves kind of the scroll bar. Where's the scroll bar? Here's the scroll bar. So if I scroll up right now, then the scroll bar goes up and the screen, you know, the menu goes down technically. Even though I'm going up, it's being swiped down. Whereas natural, if I swipe down now, it's trying to go up. If I swipe up, then it's kind of confusing on a mouse. That's why I don't ever use natural. This is what Apple uses by default, like OS X. So if you're used to Mac OS, you're going to want natural scrolling. If you're still learning, I would suggest traditional scrolling. There's a little test settings menu up here in the bottom, up here in the top right, which will allow you to test how your scroll works. I just did over there, and you can test how your single click and double click works. Sometimes there's, especially on touchpad, there's a click delay setting, so you can change the speed at which you can double click with. So I guess that's what this is testing to see if that's clicking right for you. We're gonna move over here to keyboard though. So this is where you can change your input sources. Again, most people aren't gonna need to affect this unless you're from a different country or you speak a different language as your primary language, and English might not be your first language. You can actually set several, and there are keybinds later that will allow you to change which keyboard you're actually on. Oh, you can actually view the keyboard layout too. Look at that. It actually pops up a little virtual keyboard, so you can click on things and set them to things or something. I'm not sure what this is doing. So you can kind of view what the keyboard layout would look like, so you can select something kind of crazy. Can I do Colmac? No, it doesn't have Colmac here. It's just languages. Okay, so this is specifically keyboard languages, not different layouts. It's interesting. It's very interesting, because I've used Colmac before, but it's not here. So I'm not sure where you would set up different layouts, unless that's what this is doing. No, that's just capital. I'm not sure what this menu here is. Yeah, so I'm not sure where you switch your actual keyboard layout if you wanted to use something more advanced like Colmac or Dvorak, but I mean, I guess English again is gonna be the best case for most people. If you want to add your own, you go in here to add an input source and you can select that. And if you want, you can outright just remove English, I'm pretty sure, when there's a new one here. So if I select Arabic, because I don't know, this is the first one, now I can remove one or the other. So yeah, I'm just gonna remove that because I'm not gonna use it. Oh, that was an interesting thing. Let's go back here and select Arabic again. You can see that now there's a selection up here in the top right, so I can change which one of these there are. And there should be a shortcut to switch as well. Oh wow, there's a lot here. Okay, we have to go through that eventually. But yeah, you can change them manually up in here. Wow, just as I was explaining how switching worked, and I was saying there's a shortcut to do this, I couldn't figure out what it would have been. It's super in space, so that's Windows key in space. Oh, there we go. See, so it's like control. It's like alt tabbing between applications. So now I switch over to Arabic, and if I do super space again, it switches over to English. So that's the shortcut. It's right here. Super in space. Windows in space, for those of you who don't know super. Or you can switch independently for each window. That's actually quite interesting. So you can switch operating source wide if you want everything for that, which is your Word application like LibreOffice Writer, your email, a texting app, your browser, things like that. Or you can switch individually. So maybe you only speak a specific language for, maybe you're learning a language in school, so you need to speak Spanish or French and you need to type in it. Then you can switch it over to a writing application or whatever application you would use for school. Maybe you talk to family on a texting app and you only speak to them in that language, but you don't use it for other things. So this gives you a bit more freedom for that. I believe it'd just be easier just to use super in space, but you know. Alternate characters, most people probably aren't going to use this. This is mostly, that's mostly going to be typing other language characters again, or special characters, which I believe you can also actually search in this thing. If you know of one, you can search it. I don't actually know of any off the top of my head, but I believe you can search for characters up in here. There's also a characters menu. Yeah, so here's some characters. I guess you can just search for the character you want, and there's also a menu for it. Oh, there's emojis. for letters. There we go. And now we have a whole list of all our letters for typing other languages. So the compose key is similar to the alternate characters key, where compose key is if you want the shortcuts. Some people understand the shortcuts. I tried at one point to learn them. This is the key that you hold and you press a sequence of characters on usually a numpad, like a series of numbers on a numpad to type a specific character as a shortcut. So that would be where you set that up. If you use that, go for it. If you understand what that is, then you probably know what the setting is and go ahead and set it. If you don't, then you're probably not going to use it, and good luck. And then we have keyboard shortcuts. Feel free to look through these. I do not have time to go through and explore what all these do. If you care about learning keybinds, go ahead and learn these. But I'm going to consider it being outside the scope of this video. Printers is very interesting. We can go over here and look at printers. Most people are actually going to use this probably. We have to unlock it first to change settings. So I'm just going to put in my password. When you click unlock, it'll ask for your password to log in, and then we can click add printer. Most of the time, if you have a printer on your local network, it will probably already be here, actually. Otherwise, if it's a more complex setting or something, you might have to go in here and have it search for them. It's probably not going to find my printer because, oh, I found something. I don't know what this is. Oh, that's probably my print server. That's more advanced. I have a printer that has shown up on my hardware Fedora system that I have, but because this is running in a virtual machine, it's not finding that. When you add a printer, all it really gives you is the option to like change the name, and obviously you can print to it. So the settings aren't super advanced for that. Go over here to region and language. This is also fairly simple and probably already set up for most people. This is just whatever language this should display in. As you change this, these settings, like what it says, that when it says the language setting is used and stuff, this setting here will change what these menus are read in. So again, if English isn't your first language, or you're trying to learn another language or something, you can go in and change this. And then formats, I'm pretty sure is this, yeah, these are time formats, so this is gonna be the same thing, and you can select what you want. Accessibility, this is actually a good menu that a lot of people who's doing this tutorial might be wanting to use. This is where you set up things like high contrast. You can turn off animations and things, which can make things feel a little snappier. Sometimes I do that myself. You turn on large text, you do different cursor sizes. You can make it quite large if you need to. I've been trying to actually find an application, kind of like Mac OS, where you shake your mouse and it makes the cursor larger. It makes it easier to find. So this is something similar to that. You can turn on sound when your caps locks and numlock keys are turned on or off. Turn on or off overlay scroll bars. So see, now it doesn't go away. The scroll bars is always here. If you have issues with scroll bars, you can turn that off. Screen readers, hearing, this is just different sounds. Typing, this is on-screen keyboard, sticky keys, things like that. Most normal accessibility options that people are used to are in here. And if you're watching this to set up a system for a family member who might need these, I would suggest going in here and setting these up for them, because honestly, they're probably going to have issues finding it if, for example, they're hard of vision and they can't read anything without these settings turned on. So do that for them, please. Here's desktop zoom. This is pretty typical. Most people know how this works. Crosshairs is interesting, and actually I wonder it might be able to be used for game cheats. That'd be interesting. But yeah, so that's just the accessibility menu. Pretty simple. Users, we've already taken a look at this. This is where you change your profile icon, your name, your password, etc. You can turn on or off automatic login if you care, or you can add other users like you could with something else. So if this is a family shared computer, you can set up a bunch of different users, and then things like installed applications, wallpapers, etc. won't be shared across. Also, files and things will be more private to people. Default applications, this is probably already set up good enough for most people. This is just when you click on a link or open a calendar link and an email, this is what will open for it. Currently it's set up to this. As you get more applications and learn how things will work, like mail or calendar, if I do Thunderbird, for example, I'll have Thunderbird set up to both of these, and this will kind of change itself dynamically. Date and time, this is also pretty simple and probably set up for most people. Automatic date and time I would suggest to leave on. Automatic time zone I would suggest to leave on, because then if you're on a laptop and you're moving around, then it will automatically change for you. If not, maybe you're having issues with, maybe you're in an area with poor GPS connection and your system's having issues finding where you're at, you can just turn off automatic and set up wherever you are actually. manually. I personally have my time format set up to 24-hour. I just prefer that, but you can set up to, it's probably set up to AM PM by default for you. I'm pretty sure mine's set up to 24-hour, probably because my main computer is set up to 24-hour as well. So that's why mine's set to this by default. You can also set up what is shown up here. So we're going to turn on weekday, and we can see it's now Thursday, April 4th. You can turn on seconds if you want, or week numbers, which actually only shows up here. You can see how many weeks you're through the year if you like having more anxiety about that. We're already a quarter of the way through 2024, so congrats on that. I'm actually going to leave weekday on because it makes it a little easier to know how far through the week I am. And then you have about, which is like system information, what version of operating system you're on. See, my hardware model is a VirtualBox model, so that's why I'm having some issues with performance and sound and things. My processor, how much RAM I have, more system details. It doesn't show certain things like your graphics system for some reason, which is super odd. But, you know, and then you can go to software updates from here. This is going to be more like, if this is like system information from Windows, if you're more familiar with that. And I believe that is all for the settings menu. We've gone through basically everything. I figured most people are probably going to want to set things up between sound and printers here. These are going to be the settings most people use, and then network and Bluetooth are going to be the two that most people use. Other than that, I think most things here are already set up for most people. We've looked at settings, we've looked at Firefox. Let's look at software next. Let's look at how to install and update applications more effectively. How about that? I will see you in the next episode where we look over software.